Then you're gonna put your earphones in, right? Then you're gonna put your earphones in, right? So then you're gonna put your earphones in, right? Then you're gonna put your earphones in, right? Why is it repeating? Yay! Yeah, let's see. Participants. Hey! Let me see if I need to unmute you in just 1 second. There we go. Unmute. There we go. Hey.
Hey, she can hear me.
I can hear you, but you look dark. Is there any way you can switch the way you turn? So the sun is the other way? Let's see. There we go.
Like that?
That's so much better. Yes.
Okay.
And I lost my mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so sorry to like put you through this, and I know you're going through some things. We're recording.
No, it's fine.
We're recording.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Let's make history.
So I'm so happy that you're joining us. It's gonna be super laid back. The whole idea is just to have a conversation about like what you do already. You don't have to talk about anything extraordinary, but just to kind of talk about like, you know, what you do. And people are gonna start coming in right now. And so for the most part, I'm gonna mute everybody until we have like a question and answer part of it, and then I'll like unmute people and then they can ask you questions. But you have the list of questions, right? So
yes, I do.
Yeah, So do you have any questions before we get started?
No. Can we get started?
Like 2 more minutes, or maybe 3 more minutes, just for people to come on board. People are starting to come right now, so I'm just adding them as they come. And let me get my pen ready. I've been practicing your name. Hi, Carol. Hi, Lennox. Thanks for joining us. So I'm going to.
How do you mean you've been practicing my name? My surname or my first name?
Of course, not your first name, Jeffrey. Your surname. I think I have it. Basin.
Yeah. No, your fault.
No, wait a second. Bezuidenhout.
Yes, that's it. Bezuidenhout.
Bezuidenhout. I have to say that
Yeah.
Z like it's South African, because I'm used to saying it like it's American. Bezuidenhout. Okay, so I'm close enough. I've been practicing it though.
Yeah, you're learning.
All right, so let me just send out, let's see, 1 minute. So we'll give people like a couple minutes.
You wanna say hi to Megan quickly before we start?
Yes, I love her.
Okay.
Hi, Megan.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Good, very good, thank you. You guys are lucky to have him today.
I know, thank you so much. I was so excited when he agreed to do it. So
yeah, I'm excited to hear more about this afterwards.
Yes, we will definitely catch up. I can't wait to come by and, have that drink and tour of the vineyard that I missed.
Dude, all of these things have been promised and we need to make sure it happens.
Yes.
Yeah, man, nice to see you.
Yes.
Safe. Good luck out there. Stay safe.
Thank you. Take care. Take care of the vines.
Thanks. Cheers.
Let's see. So
like a sneak preview.
So hi, Carol. Hi, Lennox.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Do you guys have video?
Hi, Carol.
You don't have to, but just in case.
I can't see Carol. I can't see Lennox.
We can't see Carol.
No, it's my lockdown face. You don't want to see it.
Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm pretty much just going to start to mute everybody because we're going to talk to Jeffrey and then we're going to hear him talk about what's going on in the vines, and then we'll have like a question and answer part where you guys can actually ask questions. But I'm just kind of waiting for more participants to come. I had like over 30 people that actually said that they wanted to come, and we're also live on YouTube. I was trying to go live on Facebook, but it wasn't working out. Yes, so we're live on YouTube. So say hi to everybody in the cyber world.
Hi, people of the world.
Okay. And usually we start these study groups on time, so we'll probably get started like 5 minutes afterwards, just because I know how valuable everybody's time is.
Hi guys. Hi Tawny.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you guys faring?
We're doing well.
Oh my goodness. First week of lockdown. Holy shit. You guys have a good stock of wine. That is harsh, not being able to buy wine during lockdown.
It is very harsh.
So anyway, I'm in Paris. Where are you guys?
Oh, we're in South Africa. Well, I'm in South Africa, basically.
Where?
So, Constantia.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So the wine stocking is not a problem on this side.
Yeah. Okay. You guys are all right. You guys are set. And Lennox, where are you?
I'm in Cape Town.
Lucky duck. Okay. I'm thinking like, I would love to be in Cape Town, even with the wine restriction. I would have stocked up. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, it's
have
good
your
to meet
spot.
you guys.
Hey, Winston.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. I'm trying to see what's going on with my video, but I'm sure. Yeah. But I'm glad I can hear everyone.
Yeah, so
that's
we
fine.
are going to, let me just mute everybody for a second. Okay. So we are going to get started. I'm just trying to wait for like a couple more minutes, 2 more minutes. We're going to get started at 12:05. And then, yeah, I'm just trying to wait for a couple more people because there were like over 30 people who RSVP'd for this. So we'll just see, maybe they're having problems logging in. All right, let's see. All right, so it's 5 after and we will get started. Okay, so it's 5 after and we will get started. I am first going to introduce everybody to, first I'm just gonna tell everybody what this is, just because some of you, this might be your first time. And we started this study group in Cape Town, part of the Blacc organization, and we started meeting every Tuesday just so that we can like improve our wine skills, our wine knowledge. And we pretty much went through the entire book for WSET. And so then we still wanted to continue to study. So then we decided to do it online. So that's how we got started. And so now we're doing these sessions online, and I wanted to expand the reach because I feel like the best way to learn about wine is to actually talk to professionals in the wine industry. So that's why I invited special guests, some of my good friends in the wine industry, to come on board and talk to us. And it's meant to be a general conversation about what they do so that we can learn about what goes on in the actual winery. So our first special guest is Jeffrey Bezadenholt. Oh my goodness, I hope I said his name right. But Jeffrey is the vineyard manager for Blacc, and I'm super excited to have him. I met him a few months ago, and he's just an amazing person, and he loves the vine. So Jeffrey, I'm going to unmute you so that we can talk to you, and come on board.
Well, you got that right. You got that right, eh? Bezadenhout.
Oh, I said it right. Yes. All right. So Jeffrey, tell us what you do at Blacc.
So
and did I say
basically,
Constantia right?
yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Seems like you've been taking English lessons. Yeah, so basically I'm the farm manager at Blacc, but shortly my duties entails the production of on-farm activities, which is basically ensuring healthy crops, managing the labor and the maintenance within the property of Blacc as well.
Nice. Now, how long have you been at Blacc?
This is my 4th month.
So this is your 4th harvest, right?
No.
Nice.
It's my first harvest at Blacc.
Oh, your first harvest.
Yeah, it's my 4th month.
Oh, wow. So it's like a crazy time then, right? How is it your first harvest at Blacc, and with everything going on, and we won't make this whole conversation about the Rona or COVID-19, but I do want to ask you, what is it like? What's going on with COVID-19 in relation to like grape growing, picking the grapes?
Yeah. So basically, when we heard the news about there's a possible like the lockdown in South Africa, obviously the me and the winemaker, so we went like, there's no way that we're stopping because we have so much grapes still hanging on the vine, even if that means that we will have to pick it ourselves, and we put ourselves out there. But luckily, we have a great team behind ourselves in the laborers, because at Blacc we believe that the people that works for us, is more than just normal laborers. It's family, and that was really a time for us that we could share in the sense of family on Blacc. And the day of lockdown, you won't believe us, but we basically had a record harvest of 12 tons within an 11-hectare farm.
Wow. So does that mean that everybody just went in there and did even more than their usual job? They just and gave it everything that they had.
There was nobody asking for breaks, nobody asking for food. People just asking, when are we finishing? It was pouring with rain, and we just kept on going and kept on going. These people were like superheroes to us.
Oh my goodness. I feel like that's just gonna add more to like the love and like the actual juice that's produced at the end of it all. Like I can't wait to taste this COVID-19 juice.
Yeah, and as the president said, we need to stand in unity within this. I would say that this COVID-19 pandemic or lockdown brought a sense of cohesiveness within the family of Blacc as well, because even the farm owners, they were picking, and the friends of the farm owners and friends of the people working on the farm, they all came together. So that's the good thing that came out of this lockdown for us at Blacc.
I think that's a good thing that's coming out of the entire world personally. So let's see. We're gonna take some questions, but first let me just get through a couple questions that I wanted to. Can you just walk us through really quickly, just because this is a study group, and so like just for some of us who might not know anything about how the wine process is made, can you just walk us through the whole growing season, like what happens from beginning to end? You know, you don't have to go into total detail.
Okay,
yeah. It's an overview.
So I'll start at the back end of things, because that's mostly the most important part, and that is post-harvest. Because you do know that the start of a bunch actually begins 15 months prior to it to budding. So that means 15 months before the grape starts to bud, you actually have to put in more work for the next season so that you can have a great harvest. That's why when you're in drought, I don't know if you know this, but if you're in drought for 1 year, you'll have 2 bad seasons. So that's why 15 months prior to even bud break, you'll have to start with good nutrition, good fertilizing, and sufficient water at that time after harvest. So that means you'll have to give water, and that water and nutrients that the plant absorbs will become reserves for when the plant goes into dormancy. And when it breaks dormancy, it uses that reserves to get out of bud break again. But before it can get out of bud break, it must accumulate a certain amount of cold units, and the soil must be warm enough for that to happen.
So the dormancy period is like what season or what month is that usually?
It's winter season. It's winter season.
Okay.
In South Africa, that would normally be from May, June, July.
Okay. So in the winter,
latest July.
In the winter, there's sleep. There's nothing much going on, and then and then after winter, gosh, I'm spring.
Yeah, spring.
Spring. And so then in the spring, what happens?
So basically in spring, then you get bud break. So
okay.
That's when, remember when I said 15 months prior to bud break? So that bud that was developed 15 months prior to this specific bud break now starts to bloom.
Nice.
Now it's in blooming season. So if
and that's is that actually when you can start to see like a grape form or like?
No. That's just like a silvery leaf coming from the grapevine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And normally, just pruning happens prior to that as well.
And so pruning is just like any normal garden when you're just like kind of cutting away all the extra leaves.
Well, it's a science in its own right as well, because it's not just about common pruning certain canes. There's actually technique and method to that as well.
So how did you learn the technique and the method? Or do you feel like you have your own special technique and method when it comes to pruning, or do you just go with your intuition?
Well, it also depends on the data that you collect from within your vineyard. Then you will apply it to each block differently as well, as to do you want a heavy crop on that specific block, or you want a lesser crop on that specific block, and that will determine your specific type of pruning technique that you will apply.
Okay. And then, so we went through winter, we went through spring, and then is there anything else that happens in the spring that we need to know about?
So after the bud break, it will start to grow. You will see canes coming out and shoots coming out. Then eventually there will small bunches will start to grow on this cane. And the next process in this is then petal drop. Now you may ask me, but why is this such an important time period for us? Well, we have a lot of winds here at Blacc, so, and at the moment that's what's happening. We see a lot of miller on dodge. So basically at that petal drop phase, if the wind comes in at that moment, that means some of the petals may drop off too soon, and that will actually dry off the berry, and it will stunt the growth of the berry as well. I don't know if you've seen that, some people call it chicken hens, where there's a big berries and then small berries in between, and the small berries are still green. So that's miller on dodge. So that's why that.
How do you stop that though? Like, how do you prevent that from happening?
Prevent wind from getting into your canopy.
Well, no, but like not to prevent the wind, but like, what do you do to help so it doesn't, the impact is not so bad? Like, you can't, there's nothing you can do? Oh.
It's like, it's like telling the higher authority or the higher power, I don't want the sun to shine today. So.
Oh, okay, so that's one of the challenges during the spring is the winter.
Yep.
I mean, not the winter, but the wind.
It's the wind, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Nice. And so then after spring, you have summer. Is there something that happens in the summertime?
Well, still in spring, late spring, early summer, you have pea size. It's the next phase is pea size, basically. And this is normally where you start to break out, open up the canopy a little bit more so that more sunlight can get into that bunch area, because when the grapes are still green, it is important that you know that those green bunches or those green berries, they can still absorb sunlight, so they also photosynthesize. So that means in their own right, they still make nutrition for the plant as well. So yeah, that is why that phase is so important as well.
And so are you responsible for making sure that there's enough canopy and like just going through the vines and like checking the canopies, and do you look at the berries or the flowerings and say, okay, this one might need more, this one might need less? How does that work?
Well, we go on a percentage basis because it will be impractical to go to every single vine on the farm and say like, okay, this one is right, don't open up this one. So if we see, okay, 80% of them at pea size, we start to break.
Okay.
And open up the canopy and start to do tipping and topping. Yeah.
Nice. Anything else that happens in the spring? So it sounds like you're really, really busy in the spring.
Yeah, most of the work happens in spring. So spring,
so
but the heavy work starts in summer. Yeah. Basically.
Okay, so then what happens in summer?
In summer, berry enlargement. Well, that is quite self-explanatory. It's just the berries getting bigger of the nutrition that we give them, either in foliar sprays or in soil or as solar applications.
And is this when they start to actually look like grape berries that we actually like use for grape or for wine?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. That's when they start to take shape, basically. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And then anything else going on in the summer?
Then to follow berry enlargement is Verizon. Verizon is just where the color of the specific cultivar comes through, or the grape comes through.
And does that give you an indication that, okay, now this wine is ready to be picked?
No, not yet, unfortunately.
No.
No. Verizon is just one.
Can't you see how impatient I am? Like, I just don't think I could be a big, I'm not good at gardening either, because I'd be like, okay, when are these seeds gonna bloom? When can I eat the fruit? Like, when is it ready?
Just pick one and taste them.
Yes.
No, but after the Verizon, there's the ripening phase. And this is the phase that gets any winemaker excited, start jumping around, because now they know it's their time to go to work.
Is this when you kind of like transition it though? Like, would you say this is kind of like when you take your baby, like maybe you're the doctor, you've watched this woman, like, you know, develop this whole time, and then like, okay, now you're delivering it and you have to pass it along to somebody else? Do you feel like that?
No, because during the whole during the whole phase, the winemaker, she is with me and planning with me as well. Because the thing is, it there's no sense in me growing this particular type of style of grape for this type of wine style that she wants to make, but then she comes in and said no, but she wants to do this with the wine, with the grapes, or want to grow this. That's why she has to be involved from the beginning.
Okay, so it's kind of like you guys work in tandem to deliver this grape baby. Sorry, I call it a grape baby, but yeah, so you guys are working in tandem to finally get it to this point where it's ripe enough to pick.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. The winemaker is Megan. What's Megan's last name?
Van der Merwe. Ne?
Oh gosh, no, I can't see it. I'm just gonna call her cool last name. That's what I'm gonna call her. Cool last name.
Van der Merwe. Yeah, Megan van der Merwe.
Okay.
Brilliant individual, one of the best winemakers in the valley. Directly sent from the wine gods. I mean, like, come on, who else better to be there to be guiding me through this process?
I love it. Okay.
I think we need like we need a choir, like you're just saying. Oh.
I know, that was my part. That was my moment. Okay, yes, but I feel the same way about you though. I feel like you've got
thank you.
A great team, and I've tasted the wines at Bolkenstein, and they're absolutely beautiful. And just in case people don't know, Bolkenstein is considered a boutique wine farm, which means that you guys don't produce a lot.
Unfortunately,
right? Unfortunately, right?
Unfortunately, we don't. I would love more.
All right.
I mean, like, then there's no shortage of wine.
That's true too. So what grape varietals are you guys producing at Bolkenstein for the most part?
For the most part, well, I'm just gonna tell you what we have on the farm. We have Viognier, which gets picked harvest first. Then we have Sauvignon Blanc. We have Semillon. We have Malbec. We have Syrah, Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh, nice. Now, do you guys do a 100% Malbec?
Unfortunately not.
That would be so delicious.
We use it in blends.
Okay, very, very cool. And I love Viognier. So you said you picked the Viognier first before the Sauvignon Blanc?
Yeah. Before the Sauvignon Blanc, yeah.
Is there a reason why before the Sauvignon Blanc? Or that's just how it goes?
Well, since the Sauvignon Blanc is higher up in the elevation and altitude, that means it will take a longer time to be ripened as well, as where our Viognier is in a more on the floor of on our farm. So that means it ripens more faster. Yeah, that's the reason for that.
Oh, that's a very interesting point though, because we learn about that when we're studying. So like the higher the elevation, the cooler it is, the longer it takes for the grapes to ripen, right?
Yes, that's correct, Joanne.
Okay, but then you have more acidity. Is that why the Sauvignon Blanc
That's
is
yeah.
very cool? And you guys do the Sauvignon Blanc as a 100% Sauvignon Blanc, maybe a little bit of
It's
Sauvignon?
100%, yes.
Okay. And then
No.
do you guys do a 100% Semillon?
No, we use it in blends as well.
Okay.
Because it's just a small block, so it's not enough to stand out alone.
And what about sparkling wines? Do you guys produce any sparkling wines?
We have still in stock, but I don't think we're gonna do any sparkling this year, man.
Okay.
Doing sparkling this year.
We're not making sparkling, we're currently still buying in sparkling.
Yeah. So we're not producing sparkling ourselves, but we buying in.
Okay. Let's see. I think I only have one more question because you answered all the questions, right? And so then, and then we'll just open it up. So if you guys have any questions, I'll if you just let me know you have a question, then I'll unmute you so that we don't all go at the same time. All right. Let's see. So are there any specific climate or like just environmental features about Bolkenstein that would make it that would make it better, make it stand out more so than other vineyards in the country? Like if you had to say it's great because of this.
So here it is. Bolkenstein is flanked on 3 sides by the cold Atlantic Ocean. So that means it's sheltered by the icy Benguela current that flows from northwards. So that means that our grapes, our average temperature is lower than other regions as well. That mildly between 16 degrees Celsius, and in the warmest month, the average temperature is 20.6 degrees. So that means that we have sugars that rise slowly, but acidity, without the acidity of the grapes deteriorating at the same time. So that means it creates a more unique character within the grape as well.
Okay. Nice. I love it. Sounds like it reminds me of like California though. Just because when you talk about how it has the Atlantic and the ocean influences, and then it's kind of warmer, so you get that coolness plus you get that warmness. Anyway, so I won't go on. We will open it up for questions. So if you guys have any questions about vineyard management or grape, I'll just unmute everybody. And then if you have any questions, let me know. So anybody have any questions?
It's Carol speaking. Yes, I do.
Okay, Carol,
Hi,
go
Carol.
ahead.
Thanks. Thanks for that information, Jeffrey. It's really, really interesting. Bokenstantia has to be one of my favorite vineyards in that area. The Lucca particularly is phenomenal. So my question is mainly regarding those 2 grape varietals, the Merlot and the Cabernet Franc. Are the Merlot grapes outsourced if they're not grown on the farm, firstly? And secondly, what are the growing conditions specifically required for Cabernet Franc?
Can I answer the question?
Yeah, 1 second though. Let me just, because there's some feedback, so let me just mute everybody and unmute you. Okay, there you go.
To answer your first question, yes, we do grow our own Merlot on the farm. We don't buy it externally from other producers. Did you get that, Carol?
Wait, okay, go ahead.
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Okay. So for the Cabernet Franc, well, when you speak perfect growing conditions, do you mean in terms of climate or soil?
Both, if possible. It's one of my favorite varietals, and it can have the most exquisite black fruit and violet floral characteristics on the nose and the palate. And I was just wondering if it's the terroir specifically that causes those characteristics, whether it's any malolactic fermentation or barrel maturation that enhances those characteristics.
Well, I would say for the Cabernet Franc, a deep alluviated soil is obviously the preference for that. And cold, very, very cold nights will also enhance that characters within the Cabernet Franc berry. So that is the two main things that to look out for when you want to plant Cabernet Franc.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a pleasure.
Does anyone else have any questions? Let's see. Okay, Winston, let me mute you. Hey,
Hi,
Winston.
thanks. How are you? Sorry, it's unfortunate my video is not working, but Jeffrey, just one question. So can I say Constantia is a cool climate area? And
Yeah.
secondly, what guys do you do in for cross-pollination? Does it have so much effect to your vines? Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So Winston, yes, it is a cool climate area. We like to call it a Mediterranean climate, but in essence, it is more cooler than other regions as well. With like Stellenbosch, which is also Mediterranean climate. And to answer your second question, cross pollination is not really applicable in this specific grape industry, because the plant is self-pollinating.
Are you good, Winston? Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, I had. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Anybody else have any questions? No? You guys are all such good students. Let's see, I was trying to see if I have any questions, but I think that you answered all of my questions. Oh, I think I do have one question. So I think I know the answer, but I just want to find out, because I know that the Constantia region is known for doing, is known for doing some like dessert wines, some botrytis, some noble rot wines. Do you guys do any of that with the Semillon?
No, not at all.
Okay. No, okay, well, that was my only question.
This is Constantia. This is Bo Constantia.
So when you say this is Bo Constantia, are you talking about the elevation or the quality of wines?
I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
It's up for own consumption.
Okay, that's fair enough. Does anybody else have any questions? Because if you guys don't, this is a really busy time for Jeffrey. I'm super excited that you were able to take some time out and to talk to us about like what's going on in the vineyards. We're gonna let him go, and then we can just stay on the call if you still want to study, because this is the study group.
I have the time free, so I might just stay in as well.
Okay, that would be awesome. Now I'm nervous. Now I feel like I'm on the spot. All right. Okay. So, like, does anybody have any questions? And Jeffrey, like, once we start to study, if I say anything that's wrong, please just correct me.
No,
okay?
it's your show. It's your show. I won't do that.
All right. Well, good. So, if anybody have any questions, one last time. Nope. All right. So, like, let's just get to studying, you guys. All right. So, Lennox, are you still with us? I'll just unmute everybody. All right, cool. So,
Honey,
yes.
Swani, can you see me?
I can see you now, yes.
Oh, okay, you couldn't see me before. I do have a question for Jeffrey, but you couldn't like hear me or something. I had a question about the MCC, Jeffrey.
Yes, go ahead.
Because I was
just say they don't produce any MCC.
Well, I was actually there in February, and I had an MCC, but it was 100% Chardonnay. So those are grapes that you bring.
That we buy in. Yeah, we outsource those grapes. Yes.
Okay, can I just ask you why you wouldn't grow Chardonnay there?
There's no space on the farm anymore, so.
Okay, so it's just a choice. Okay, something has to go, right?
Yeah, something has to go.
Well, it was a lovely MCC.
Well, thank you for that. I hope it was the best MCC you had.
Yeah, love those bubbles. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Anybody else with any more questions before we start? All right, so basically when we study, we like to follow the WSET like study guide, just because I feel like a lot of people are going to take the test or have taken the test and might need a refresher. So this study group is basically to help you with the level 2 course, the level 2 certificate. And I feel like it's a lot of information, but it's really not that much information. Like we went through the entire book in like 4 different study sessions. And so we're just gonna re-go through the book for new people and for the people that were in the study session before. So if you guys wanna just start taking notes, or I don't know how you wanna study, but basically, in chapter 4, they talk about the grape growing and related labeling terms. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Is this what you have?
Okay.
I don't know.
Wait, let me see. I can't see yours. Can you hold it up and say something so I can see?
Is this the book you're using?
Yeah. Wait, Wine and Spirits. Yeah, but what level was that one? Is that level 2?
It's the 2. Yeah.
Yeah. This is from this year. They changed it this year a little bit.
Oh wait, and it's only wine. It's not spirits anymore, right?
It's wine. Yeah, it's wine.
Yeah, they stopped spirits. Because I actually took it last. I don't even know when the heck I took it. I took it like a little while ago, and there was still the spirits, but they said they were dropping it for some reason.
This one is just wine, so that's what we're going to talk about. And like, really, it's not just my study group; it's everybody's study group. So like, if you have information you want to add, please do so. And so we're going to talk about, I'm just going to go over what Jeffrey talked about, just in case you guys take notes. And then we can just go from there, right? So basically, what are vines? And grapevines are, grapes come from grapevines, and they're planted on rootstocks. Like he said, they're self-pollinating, so there's no cross-pollination that's going on. And then what do you need for these vines? So you basically need sunlight, you need, what are some of the other things that you need? You need carbon dioxide. It's just like growing a plant. I think everyone is studying for level 2 for the most part. Not me, but I think mostly everybody in the group. So that was a question that I just had. And you guys can feel free to stop me or to ask questions or to add anything. But yes, you have a question? Mobe? Mobene. How do you say your name? Okay. So yeah, so they need sunlight, they need carbon dioxide, they need water, and they need sugar. All of this is needed to actually grow the grapevine. And then when you have the grapes, you're talking about like, here's a picture of the grapes. And you guys can look all of this up on your own. But basically, the grapes.
Yeah, some people don't have the books, Duani. I left mine at work.
But you know what though? You don't necessarily have to have the book. I feel like using the book is just like a guideline. I just like to take the subject matter and study from there.
We're gonna borrow yours. We're gonna look at yours.
Yes, just take a screenshot of this. All right. So
is there a way to send a doc? Like, is there a way to like send pages or something?
Just to bring closer to the screen.
I don't have a doc like pictures, but I do have a study guide with notes that I created, and I could send you all that. So I'll send it after the class, and it just pretty much summarizes everything that's in this book. So I'll send that to you guys. I don't know if I could send it right now. Yeah, I'll send it. If you guys registered through like the Google calendar, I can send it to you. But basically, just take notes for now, and then you can go back and find pictures. All right. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. So when you think about the grapevine, right? The grape, not the grapevine, but the actual grape, right? Because that's exactly what we're gonna get to eventually when you go through all the different seasons that he talked about. You're gonna get this grape, and it's basically gonna have this outer layer, which is called the skin. And the skin is where you get all the color and you get the tannins for red wine, right? And then it's gonna have the pulp, and the pulp is where you're gonna have mostly the sugar and the water, right? And the yeast, right? And then you have the seeds. And so then the seeds are also gonna have tannins. But I think that's the only thing that the seeds are good for. Not good for, but you know, they have tannins in the seeds.
Can I jump in there?
Yes, please.
And for the seeds as well, it's actually our first objective visual presentation as a producer. Then we go on and we break open the berry and we look at the seeds, because if the seeds are brown, then we know it's a first sign of ripeness.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
So like usually, and if they're not brown, they might be green.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So there's a big difference between when they're ripe and when they're not.
Okay.
In perspective to the
Great
seeds.
lesson.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you. I know now all the winemakers are gonna be mad because next time I go to a winery during harvest season, I get all the grapes. So that is good to know. And so I think what's important, a good takeaway from this as well, is just to remember that the skin of the grape is where you're going to get the color and you're going to get the tannins for red wine. And then for white wine, you usually don't leave it in contact with the skin, but I don't know if there's any other things that you get from the skin, Jeffrey. Maybe you know.
That's correct.
All right, and so then let's just talk about the seasons. So Jeffrey talked about the seasons a lot, and he mostly said my takeaway was like in the wintertime, that's pretty much when everything is like dormant, right? So there's not too much that's happening. And then in the spring, that's when all the work happens. So that's when you're gonna have the flowering, you're gonna have the fruit set. And then by the summertime, and I'm summarizing, but then by the summertime, that's when you're gonna start to have like veraison, and that's when this color is gonna start changing for the grape. And then you're gonna have ripening, which is gonna happen in the fall. Could you say late summer, early fall?
Well, it depends from region to region.
And global warming, of course, right?
Yeah, that as well. Because if you get higher fluctuations of heat, like we did now in February, that means that
Pitia tena uangalie kama kuna swali unakumbuka. Ujaze kama ukumbuki unaweka
that means that pushes it a week,
kufanya sasa revision.
pushes it on another week, and especially when
you
you get more rain.
utafutie partners hapo.
Okay, lady, finish first.
Go ahead.
Like if there's heat flushes that like that is very extreme, that the vines are not used to in your specific region, that means that it will stunt a bit. And the problem that we had in February, there was fluctuations of heat and wind as well. So basically the grapevine stood still for that moment. So that pushes our harvest on one more week. And with more rain in that period of ripening, that means that the sugar levels will drop. So that means another week that we have to push on. So that is the sort of difficulty that we have with farming in this region of Constantia.
But if we had had like a heat wave, then it would have pushed it up sooner.
How do you mean now?
Like, so for example, like one time I came, well, not one time, when I came in 2018, right? I came in 2018 and I was expecting to come for like full blown harvest. And I got here in maybe the first week of March, and harvest was pretty much over. Like everybody had picked almost everything that they had to pick.
Yeah, because your respiration rate is so much higher as well when that happens. Because the plant is thinking now survival.
Uh-huh. Wow.
So its first priority is to ripen the fruit in that case. And with that being said, with ripening the fruit, it's actually making seeds so that seeds can drop and then become fruit again. But we don't grow seeds. We still manipulate that process as well.
I love it. Okay. Lennox, I don't know why he's not talking, but he just made an interesting point, and he says that, interesting fact, the first vines in South Africa were cultivated in Constantia. A little bit of a history lesson there. Thank you, Lennox. Do you know what they were growing and where they were taking it for the most part?
I'm not quite sure, but I just know the first time they cultivated in Constantia. I'm not sure what grape varieties are. Maybe Jeffrey knows.
They were the sweet wines, weren't they? The
Yeah, I think they were
Muscadal, like Alexandrie, Alexandrie.
Yeah, Alexandre de Muscat.
Yeah, that was one of Napoleon's. That was like Napoleon's favorite wine. And all the 19th century, like, you know, heads of state and whatever, they're like, oh, South African wines. We need to do that again now. Get it going.
And I think that too was like, speaking of that, along those lines, it was a lot of like late harvest grapes that were grown during that time, and they were making the dessert wine for the Muscat, and they were subject to the botrytis. So like, I think that's really interesting, because I think maybe because of where Constantia is, because of the fog and because of the mountains trapping all of that fog in there, the botrytis grows really well. So they were able to do those sweet wines.
But you see, like we have the wind constantly going through our vines. So fungus is not really that big of a problem.
Yeah, at Bold Constantia, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But when you're more so on the valley floor, then that's when you don't have as much wind, and then you have the fungus. Would you say that's accurate or no?
It depends on the direction of your rows as well. If your rows are planted in the wrong direction and the wind doesn't run right through your rows, then yes, you will have a problem.
Oh my goodness, there's so many decisions to make. So like, you're telling me like the rows have to be planted, and when they plant the rows, do they actually think about that? So like, when they're planting these vineyards, or do they say, okay, which way is the wind blowing? We're gonna plant the row in this certain way or this certain way? Oh wow.
Yeah, because for any pathogen to live, it needs food, it needs a host, it needs moisture, and either carbon dioxide or oxygen. So what the wind does, it actually dries the vine. So that takes out moisture in the equation. So if there's no moisture, it means that the pathogen can't live within the plant, because there's one element of these four elements missing for them to thrive, for their survival. So that's the job of the wind running through the vines. It's drying off of the vines.
So it could be good or it could be bad. It just depends.
Yeah, too much wind is bad.
Too much wind is bad. Okay, but just enough wind keeps them nice and dry.
Yeah, because what too much wind does, it actually closes the stomata on the leaves. You all know what the stomata is, right?
No, what is this?
Stomata.
I don't know what that is. I don't know. It is like lost in translation. Okay. How do you write that? How do you spell that? S-T-O-M-A-T-A. O-M-A-T-A. Stomata. Oh no, I've never heard this word before. Yeah. Wow.
Basically, that's how the plant breathes.
How the plant breathes?
Yeah, that's how air gets into and oxygen gets into the carbon dioxide gets into the plant. So if the wind is too high, stomata closes for survival again. That means no carbon dioxide will get into the plant, and the plant can't produce anything. So it will halt its growth.
Okay. Plants are so smart though, man. I guess it's just like anything that God created. He gave us like protection things. So.
Yeah.
It's so
That's
cool.
why you will see in high wind areas, you will see basically shrubs. You won't see grapevines. Rather, you will see they're very short.
The
Is
bush,
that what
would
you
that be
call
the bush vines?
The bush vines are specifically planted,
that short?
but I mean, like if you trellis in a very windy area, you will get very short vines.
Oh, so like not even bush vines. You just mean like short. Like I went up to what is it? I
Like,
think it
have,
was
no,
well,
have you seen our 7 year? Oh, you haven't been up there yet.
I've been there, but I didn't take the vineyard tour when I came. And I was planning on coming before the whole Rona thing happened. Yes. After
And
Rona,
Corona.
I'll have to come and see. So, but there's a difference between, and I think what Anna's talking about is bush vines, right? So we all know what bush vines, they just grow very short, right? But then there's also a way to trellis where you don't have them go super high and you just keep them closer to the ground. And they're not bush vines, they're just short trellis, right?
What I'm saying, if you do trellis in a very windy area, your vines will not grow as big as you would want them to, or as they would normally would. Because of that phenomena that I just explained, the stomata closes and the growth will halt.
Oh.
Okay. I think that makes sense to me. Does everybody understand exactly what he's saying?
Yep.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Cool. Oh my God, I'm so glad that you're here with us. All right.
Yeah.
So then the next thing we're going to talk about in this chapter is like some of the different types of like grapes that you get that are affected by like the environment or the wind. And one of them is already is botrytis or noble rot, and then frozen grapes. So those are both going to be sweet. Botrytis, of course, comes from the fungus, and the fruit is dried out, and the flavors are very concentrated. So that happens, like Jeffrey was saying, not when you have like a windy vineyard, but when you have a vineyard that's probably on like the floor somewhere, not on elevation, where it doesn't really have this high wind tunnel, because you need that fungus to grow. And that fungus is good for the botrytis grapes. And then you have the frozen grapes, like that happens in very cool regions, kind of like Canada, where they actually freeze on the vine. They pick them frozen when they're just right, and then they pick them frozen, and then they press them, and then they get this very concentrated fruit. So that's the frozen. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, because remember, it's not Tawny's wine lesson. We're all studying together. So you guys feel free to just like pop in. You know more than me. Please don't be intimidated. All right. Let's see. And then they just talk about the different like climate and like temperatures for growing. And so like the average growing season temperature is 62 degrees Fahrenheit. That's for a cool region or for a cool area. And then for like a moderate area, and that's, I said 62, right? 62 degrees Fahrenheit, which is gonna be 16.5 in Celsius, because I know you guys use Celsius here. And then for a moderate growing climate, it's gonna be 16.5 degrees Celsius and 65 degrees, 16 to 18.5 Celsius are 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And then for a warm region, that's gonna be 18.5 degrees Celsius, and then 18.5 to 21 are 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think that, for example, California, for the most part, would be considered a warm region, just because we are in the 65 to 70 degrees or the 18.5 to 21. What about France or Paris for the most part, or parts of Paris, France?
Oh, that would be so, well, Paris, I don't know too much. There actually are vineyards, like small vineyards in Paris, Intramuros. And I've been trying to get in touch with them. They have some interesting projects going on, like urban vineyards. I don't know if you guys have that going on, like really urban, not like Constantia, which is like sort of close to Cape Town, but it's still very, rolling hills and everything. But then in France, there's a lot of variety in temperature in the different regions. Like you would, in the Champagne region, you know, to the north, it's going to be colder. And I don't have those exact temperatures, but then down in the south in Provence, where they're, you know, more known for their rosé, they're going to be, that would be more, that's the Mediterranean climate. Like even the winters are quite mild. Like you could walk around in like a t-shirt or something like that, even in the winter.
Yeah, so I think just to get like a perspective though of like what we all kind of consider cool, warm, and Mediterranean and, you know, continental. Mediterranean, I would say, would be warm.
Yeah, that would be the south of France and all like the rosés and even like Côte du Rhône would be a little bit warmer than say Bordeaux, which would be a little
and then
bit
Bordeaux would probably, I mean, and then I know for sure Champagne is going to be like a cooler region.
That's
Anywhere
cooler, yeah, exactly.
Like Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, those are going to be your cooler regions.
Yeah, oh yeah, then the Riesling, like over in Alsace-Lorraine in the northeast, going over towards Germany, there that would be colder for sure with the Riesling and Gewürztraminer and stuff like that they grow.
And I think like your moderate would be more like your Bordeaux, right? Like where you're growing like Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon.
And they'll have the wind coming off the ocean also.
Yeah, and then to put it in perspective for South Africa, I think that when you think about cool, moderate, and warm, like Jeffrey had said, Constantia, I think, is a warm climate region, but it has some cool areas, especially like when you think about the altitudes and some of the higher elevations. Maybe not cool, but maybe moderate. So maybe it's moderate to warm.
Yeah, and then you guys have like Swartland and even like Wellington, where I feel like it's hotter than other places because I did the harvest in Wellington and I was like, man, it's like 40 degrees or something. I was like,
I definitely
was so hot.
I feel like that's gonna be warm. All right, and then,
I don't know if you noticed that some of the farmers in France, they actually leave stones out in the vineyard. Don't know if you noticed that.
Stones?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Do you know why they do that?
Oh, would that be like because they would get cold in the evening?
No. Quite the opposite.
They get cold in the evening and then they heat up during the day.
They heat up, yes, okay, your concept is right, but this is exactly why they do it. So it absorbs all the energy during the day, and at night it releases all that energy.
Okay.
In terms of warmth into the soil.
So when you have the cool nights, it still keeps them like at a moderate temperature because it has like
then the two balances it out. Yeah.
It reduces frost damage on the buds.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that, please? Was that Carol?
Yes, it was, Tuani. Sorry. There's two methods that they use in France. One, as Jeffrey correctly said, is the stones. They allow them to absorb the sunlight during the day. And the earth has a higher specific heat capacity than water. So it's called terrestrial radiation, and it releases that heat overnight. So it keeps the temperature fairly moderate. So there's less frost damage in the morning and at dawn.
Nice.
And the other thing they do is they light fires at the ends of the vineyards as well, at the ends of the rows. I'm still not 100% sure about that process because personally I would be concerned about smoke taint. But it just helps reduce the effect of the frost on the buds as they break.
Nice, good info. All right, so some of the climate influences that you have, of course, are going to be latitude. And Jeffrey talked about that when he was talking about how they plant the Sauvignon Blanc at the higher elevation because the latitude helps with acidity. And then just in general, this is a really key factor too. In general, the latitude that most great wine regions are on are between the 30 and the 50 degree latitude in the world. So like if you took an entire map of the world and you looked at, you know how like each has a latitude, like, you know, And so when you look at the latitudes between the 30 and the 50 degrees, that's where you have the United States, you have Italy, you have France, you have South Africa on the southern part of that. But you have Australia, Argentina, all of them are between the 30 and the 50 degree latitude. So, I mean, I think that that's key because I do remember that fact being on the test when I took it. So you guys might want to note that. And so altitude is actually what I was talking about when I was talking about the Sauvignon Blanc. So how high up a vineyard is, or if it's on a slope, the altitude helps with the acidity in wine. And some wines that you want to have a really, really high acidity, like Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, you're gonna want those Pinot Noir, you're gonna want those at higher altitudes because it makes it for cooler regions. And then the seas are bodies of water. Bodies of water also help. So you have seas, you have rivers, you have oceans, all of those influence and help monitor or moderate the temperatures in the climate, so in different regions. So like most good wine regions, our great wine regions have some form of body of water close by, whether it be a river, a sea, or ocean. And then of course the air, as Jeffrey was mentioning before, air or wind can be the friend to the wine or it could be damaging to the wine, but just the right amount of wind helps with the wine. Clouds, fog, and mist, they also help determine the flavor, develop the flavor in wine. The clouds act as a protective. So like on sunny days, if there's a little bit of cloud cover, the grapes won't get too much sun. And then the fog cools down the grapes if you have like a really warm region. I know this is important in Pinot Noir because it's so thin skinned. And so it needs the heat to ripen, but then it also needs the fog to kind of like cool things down. So yeah.
Oops.
And then what else? Let's see. Mountains. Mountains are super important because mountains help protect the vineyards against too much wind sometimes. So I know the winds can be crazy in Cape Town. I mean, it sounds like there's a tornado most times, but I feel like the winds, like if you have a vineyard that's protected by mountain ranges, it helps break down that wind so it's not as intense. Did I say the mountains? Yeah, the mountains help with that. And then slopes help because they help get sunlight to vines. So like, especially in like places like Côte d'Rône, for example, if you have wine that grows on a slope, that's the more expensive wine. That's the wine that's developing the best just because it gets like that perfect angle where the sun can hit it and it can ripen really well. And where it's facing, like, so like the slope, if it's facing the sun or if it's not facing the sun makes a big difference. So I think facing the sun is better. And remember, if you guys have any different information or if I'm explaining it wrong, please correct me. The soil is important. We didn't really talk about the soil, Jeffrey, but maybe you could just tell us like what kind of soils you guys have at Boa Constantia. I know in the United States, we have a lot of volcanic soil, which gives the wine really good complex flavors.
Oh, basically, in South Africa, we don't have that uniform soil. We're not as lucky as you guys. It's very heterogenic. So even here in Boa Constantia, we have soils from Hutton and Avalon to Kulu and Oakleaf and Glen Rosa soil that, which in their own right is to a certain degree great. And that makes the cultivation practice so much interesting as well in South Africa because you now have to apply yourself to each and every block where there's a difference in the soil type that there occurs on the soil.
So are you saying that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you saying that I could stand at Boa Constantia and I could have like maybe 7 or 8 different places with different kind of soil types in that same vineyard?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Wow.
How does that happen? How in such a relatively small space it would be so diverse? I think I missed something.
Only God can answer that.
Okay, all right.
I like to think of it as like when I think of like California and Africa, for example. California is more of a newer country, continent with people and like things, right? Whereas Africa has been here for so long, so maybe the soil has happened because there's been so many lives, like, you know, deaths, like animals dying, people dying, plants dying, you know what I mean? And it's just like regenerating itself, maybe. He's like, I'll leave it to God.
I'm not Google.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, we have to do you do like a soilologist or something for that.
Yeah, what would be a good source to learn more about soils over in different soils there? In more South Africa, I guess. What would be just...
Well, we have like a booklet and specifically that the soil scientists they compile. So there's a booklet that explains every type of soil and what can be planted in that soil. So when you test your soils, you can just look on the booklet as well and compare your soils, and boom, pops your uncle.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And so the weather, we talked about the different weather, and then...
Which makes you think, Tuani, would you also like to have a soil scientist?
Yeah, that would be great. Do you know a soil scientist?
I'll talk to him and then see what he is.
Soil scientist.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, here's a soil scientist. That'll answer your question.
Maybe she knows, like, why do you have different types of soil? So the question came about, like, why would one area like South Africa or like Constantia have like different plots of vineyards with different types of soil? Whereas like if you were in California, for example, you might have one vineyard and it might have only two different types of soil in that one vineyard, you know? But
so like that very much depends on the age of the continent that you are on. With the United States sort of, you know, historically being a single continent, and Africa changing from a combination of Africa, Asia, and Australia, there was a lot of disruption in the formation of our soils. It also has a lot to do with height above sea level, as those extrusions have a lot to do with the rate at which your soil biodegrades into different subsoils. So our soil profile for the Table Mountain range is 8 million years old, whereas in your central California, so San Luis Obispo, etc., Paso Robles areas, you've got soils that are about 300 million years old, where you actually have whale fossils that have hardly even been deteriorated. So it very much is about the origin of the mother material. So our mother materials are basically either from origin below the surface of the earth. So they were extruded by volcanoes or by cracks in the surface area of our continents, and it came from below that. Or we have our nucleotonic profiles, which are soils that develop from ocean floors. So it really is just about the physical development of that site and how all the chemicals ended up getting together to leave you with that sort of soil. So because in South Africa, we are so defined by mountain ranges and different oceanic influences, we have a lot of varied terrain, which makes it sort of every like winemaker's dream and every viticulturist's nightmare. Whereas in California, you don't have as big a differences in terms of mountain ranges, and for that reason, your soil profiles are a lot more unified because they developed over less time, and they essentially developed under the same sort of circumstance.
Makes sense. Yeah, That makes perfect sense. That's exactly kind of like what I said it. You just said it a lot smarter and better. Perfect.
No ways. I'm eavesdropping. What you guys are doing is way more exciting than what I'm doing. So I've got one ear and you guys on the side here.
Thanks for eavesdropping. That was amazing. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. But I would like to delve into it a little bit more. That's fascinating. Yeah.
I know. I love just looking at the soil when I do go and like picking it up and smelling it. I'm not the person who's licking rocks, but I do like the soil.
Because it really is like, you know, the French word for, you know, terroir. I mean, the first thing you hear, a French person hears is terre, which is actually the soil. So it's like the sort of, you know, starting place for the whole thing. So it has such an influence that I think a lot of people don't really know about.
Yep. I think you're right.
Like people outside of, you know, the inner.
I know, outside of us, like most people when they drink wine, they're not thinking about like, what kind of soil is this? Like, you know.
Or like, what were the conditions? Like, you know, was it
like
hot?
how old is this soil?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Sure.
Some other influences from the climate are just like whether you have a hot vintage or a cold vintage. Jeffrey talked about that too. Like it could depend on, that will determine when you pick the grapes, or you know, how soon or how long you let them stay on the vines. Drought. Drought actually, you know, what I heard about the drought, or what I know about drought is not necessarily bad for vineyards because it just makes grapes work harder. So you might not have a lot of grapes that are produced, but you're going to have higher quality grapes because they have to work harder and go deeper to get the water. And so the flavors are more complex. Is that true or is that not? That's okay.
Yeah, I thought that was Tuani. I'm glad you mentioned that because when I was taking this class, that was one of the most interesting comments that the instructor made, was that like basically almost like the harder the conditions, like not shitty soil, but like really difficult situation, it makes like those grapes like fight for it and they're actually better. And like there's actually a sentence that says, in general, provided there are sufficient nutrients, poorer soils result in better quality grapes.
Yeah.
It doesn't even seem logical to maybe to like the outside public, but it's I think that's fascinating, this concept of like fighting for it and like putting down, I don't know, the deeper roots or whatever it is, but like really having to fight for it, and that brings out.
I know, that's why I like to think of myself.
It's almost symbolic.
Like yes.
I like it.
Yes. All right, so a couple more climate influences are going to be like the amount of rain, hail. Hail can be really damaging to wines. Frost can be very damaging to wines. And Carol mentioned a couple things that they're doing in Paris, or not Paris. I always say Paris when I think about France, but they're doing in France.
We're just drinking the wine. We're drinking it. They're making it elsewhere.
About France, Carol had mentioned some things that they're doing to help with frost. So those are pretty much all the climate influences that you're going to have when you're growing these grapes before you even get to the point of having the wine or the juice. And then, okay, so we talked about all the climate influences, and now we're going to just talk about the training and the pruning. And it's so funny because like in my book, I'm so glad that Jeffrey is here, because for me, I'm so impatient. So this is the hard part for me. I don't even have a whole bunch of notes in my book because I just kind of go through all of this because I'm like, get me to the point where they're pressing the grapes. But you know, he talked about it, Jeffrey, and I love that you're so passionate about being a vineyard manager, because all of this is so important. So like the training of the vines, the pruning of the vines, the irrigation. Can you just talk to us a little bit about irrigation? Like, do you guys use an irrigation system at Boconstantia, or do you just go with the natural water that you have, or what is irrigation?
Yes, we do. We do have an irrigation system in place. You would think now, because we have 1,200 millimeters, 1,000 millimeters rain a year, that will be suffice for the growth of the plant. But yes, we do have irrigation system in place, and normally we run our irrigation on a 14-day cycle. So if I irrigate today, in 14 days after that previous irrigation, I will irrigate it again.
Okay, so it's not like you have. It's not like a plant that tells you to water it every day. You don't have to water
No,
it every day.
no. It's the same principle. Too much water is not a good thing.
Okay. What about spraying the vines for like fungus and disease? How do you guys at Boconstantia protect against like small pests and then large animals like birds or like even cheetahs or something?
Come on, cheetah.
Do they have
Boconstantia.
cheetahs?
They're gonna eat the grapes.
Wait, I'm so American. How do you guys protect yourself from lions?
Large animals.
That are just roaming the
Cape
streets of
leopard. The Cape leopard.
Yeah, the leopard, yes.
So for the birds, we have nets that we put up within the canopy, just the part where the bunch are, and then we also have reflected tape. So when the birds come flying over, they see this reflected tape, and they won't bother going into the vine in that specific place where the reflected tape is. And the nets make it but more difficult for them because they don't have really access to the grapes. But believe you me, nature finds a way.
Oh wow! So is that like something that you really worry about? Like, do you worry like at night? Like, am I gonna get up this morning and like find half a vineyard eaten or something like that? Or
Especially when they're ripe.
okay, and the birds.
That's when yeah, that's when you see them the most. When they're ripe, and you see the most bird damage.
Oh wow. And then let's see. Maybe okay, so let's just talk about. So we talked about all of like the growing processes, and the harvest and the climate. Now we're just going to talk in this chapter. They also talk about labeling terms. And this is something that I struggle with a little bit myself, and maybe somebody else can like put in their 2 cents about it too. So when you talk about the labeling terms, you just talk about how, like I know in the EU, they have this new labeling thing where they're just labeling everything with geographical indications, GIs. Anybody else want to just weigh in on like labeling, like, or do you just want me to go? Nobody else? Okay,
Leave
so I'll talk about.
Leave that for the marketing people.
That's just really, it's interesting that the major difference between like New World and Old World wines. How
That's
that
a good start.
in the Old World wines, like you say, they just give the region, the name of the town, whatever it is. And it's up to you to understand that typically, you know, if it's going to be like a Bordeaux, it would be like Cabernet Merlot, either like more Cabernet, more Merlot, or more Merlot, more Cabernet, depending on which side of the river you're on. Or, you know, you have to know what the cultivars would be according to where the wine is from. Whereas in South Africa and the other New World countries, you actually see it'll be written like Shiraz or, you know, Cape Blend or Cabernet or something like that. So it's like, it is a little bit easier to know right away what you have in your bottle.
Yes, thank you. That was a perfect explanation. So basically you have the Old World and you have the New World. And in the Old World, they name their wines after the region. And in the New Worlds, we actually name our wines after the grape. So like if you want a Shiraz, you go to the store and you get a bottle of Shiraz that's going to be made by Melanu or somebody, right? If you were in France and you wanted a bottle of Shiraz, you probably have to get something from Côte de Rhône or the Rhône Valley, and then you'd have to know what region specifically you want that from. So, and then the biggest thing is, we'll get more into that, but the geographic indication, the GIs, that's just key to know about labeling. Also, they're gonna have the vintage, which is the year that the grapes were picked. That's always going to be on a label. If it's not the year that the grapes were picked, it's gonna say NV, it's gonna say non-vintage, but for the most part, that's what you're gonna have. So yeah, and then it's gonna tell you if it's a late harvest, if it's ice wine, things like that. So
I think it's interesting it seems like you have much more latitude in the New World wine creation, to say like, oh, some people are, trying to grow, Shiraz grapes in a place where you wouldn't, like a kind of a climate where you wouldn't necessarily expect it to work, but it could, and it could just give a totally different sense of
profile.
different, like a totally different version of Shiraz than in another place. And it's interesting. You could say like, oh, a Cabernet Sauvignon from this climate versus the Cab Sauvignon from this climate. I think there's a little bit more freedom in that sense. I mean, obviously you can't, like, if the climate just doesn't lend itself to a particular, varietal, that would kind of be a waste of time. But I think you could do more unexpected things.
Carol, did you have something to add to that?
I'm really glad that she raised that point, because I think we do have a lot more freedom and latitude to be creative in this country. And our new upcoming young gun winemakers are certainly making a name for themselves precisely by doing that. So whether they're using the old bush vines or growing grapes in, as she says, areas that are not specifically associated with that because of their terroir and their climate. And I think it's wonderful to see that we do have that freedom to be that expressive and that creative. And I think Andrea Molyneux is definitely one of the leaders in that front. And many other winemakers. I mean, you look at Martin Lamprecht from Maras wines as well. The stunning wines he's making from the Pickenierskloof and that type of area. So it's great to see that we do have the freedom to be that expressive and that creative, and that we're not bogged down by bureaucratic red tape.
Right. And then they can be creative with the blends as well. Like, I feel like that's one of the things I love about South African wines, is because it's one of the places in the world where you'll get like a Cabernet blended with a Shiraz with a little bit of, sometimes they might even throw a Pinot Noir in there or whatever, but it's just, you get these really insane blends, which is amazing.
Right. I remember being at, where were they saying? I think it was at, oh my gosh, what was it? Telema. I think it was Telema. I'm sorry to like name but we're allowed to name other other wine farms, right? But I remember they had two different ranges. They had like, I think it's Sutherland or something like that, and the Telema, and they were like grapes grown in different, they had different climates. So they had these two sort of series of wines that they would propose during the tastings. So you could see like, this is a Chardonnay grown here and that's a Chardonnay there, or like a Pinot Noir or whatever. So it's interesting to see the effect of the climate and certainly the soil types too. So just terroir in general on both of them. And then even some places will source grapes from totally different regions. And then like you just were mentioning blends, they would put them in a blend so they could have something more just diverse and rich. So they don't have to grow everything in one place. Like they might have maybe plots of land in different places, or they just source from other, I guess, under vineyards or something. I'm not exactly sure of the technicalities, but it's interesting to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And I feel like, especially with global warming, my question is to like people in countries that have these really strict laws about what you can grow where. How does global warming affect that? Because like if you said, okay, Sauvignon Blanc grows best in Bordeaux because, it's a cooler region, we have these altitudes, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, because of global warming, Bordeaux is as warm as the south of France, then the Sauvignon Blanc isn't really going to be as crisp and as good as it was before. And do you still keep that rule like 20 years from now? So
that's going to be a challenge for the managers, the farm managers, I guess, and the
I mean, for the wine industry in general. I mean, France, they came out with this classification in 1856. Like the world has changed so much, climate has changed so much. So how can that still even be relevant? That would be a question that I would need a French winemaker to answer. All right, so we pretty much just went through that entire chapter of grape growing and climate influences. I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions now that we went through the entire chapter, while we have Jeffrey here, who's our certified expert for the day. This would be your time to just like really just, make sure that you become an expert too. Any questions, anybody?
No.
No?
Jeffrey, sorry.
Yes.
I just wanted to find out the specific rootstock that you use for the different altitudes. So I would think if you have vineyards in a lower lying area that is closer to the water table, would you use a different, slightly more water resistant rootstock that doesn't rot as easily as the ones you would use higher up with greater altitudes?
That's correct, yeah. The one at greater altitudes, one that is more drought resistant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to ask, to add on that, is it all American rootstocks or is different rootstocks for different climate or terroir?
Is the question based directed at me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. I won't say just terroir specifically, but your specific soil sample that you take from your farm.
But is it all American rootstock, or it's like different rootstock?
No, it's different rootstocks. Different rootstocks. There's so much rootstocks out there, even in South Africa.
Yeah, because I've heard like most of the vines, they use American rootstocks because of that, what's that disease?
Phylloxera.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, the phylloxera. Yeah, I know. The Richter is mostly the ones that are good against phylloxera.
What the fuck?
Okay. Cool, thanks.
All right. So any more questions? Any more questions? All right,
Wani,
yes?
I see that you have some Bokenstantia gin standing there in the background.
I do.
One more question for Jeff. So you being a farm manager, are you like a viticulturist or is it like a different kind of job?
See, I graduated in viticulture and horticulture. So that is my two professions that I can go in now.
I see.
I think I do have one question. It's just more of my silly question that I always ask vineyard managers or winemakers. Do you have a grape that is good to you, that you love growing, that you can plant with your eyes closed anywhere around the world, whatever the conditions are? Like, do you have one varietal cultivar that is just that good to you and easy?
I won't say that is easy, but because personally I love Sauvignon Blanc. So regardless where, I will make it work.
Okay. And is there one that you just despise? Like if you didn't have to plant another vine for this one, you would say, okay, I'm good in life. Like
I haven't really thought of that. To be honest, no.
Okay, well that's fair enough. They're like your children then. You love them all. Okay, so you just called me out on the gin, the Bokenstantia gin that I have. Okay, so this gin, you guys make this there on the farm?
No. We also outsource it.
Oh, so none of the grapes from this gin come from the farm. You're not making this from Bokenstantia. That would be interesting.
Oh, so it's made from grapes?
No, it's not made from grapes.
Oh, I was gonna say. I was like, question, can you make gin from anything, pretty much?
Yeah.
Like, for example, could you make it from apples?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. But so you could make it from grapes.
You can, but then
Has anyone tried?
it will be mampur.
It would be what?
Yeah.
Mampur.
Mamtur. What is that? Does that exist already?
Moonshine. Moonshine.
Moonshine. Okay. All right. So like, whoa. Deadly.
No, what I'm thinking of, you know what I'm thinking of? You know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of brandy made from Chenin Blanc grapes. That's what I was thinking of. This comes from juniper berry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But it's delicious nonetheless. It's almost gone.
Oh, no.
I've been alternating between wine and gin and tonics during this lockdown. Just because I don't want to go through my...
Just take it slow. You're only 5 days in.
I know. Jeez.
I know.
You're supposed to have two wine, 2 alcohol-free days, right? Per week?
No, you know what? Actually, I've just been...
I don't know. That's what they say.
Carol, did you have something to add? I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've been trying to not drink every day, like the weekends. Okay, I give myself a pass. I drink every day on the weekends, but then during the week, I'm trying not to drink every day. So, yeah. Like yesterday, I didn't have a drink. Did I? Wait a second. No, I had one.
It's tough.
All right, so we are going to stop this early since we finished the entire chapter. We talked about grape growing. I mean, if anybody has any questions, hopefully you guys all understand. I'm just gonna do a really cool quiz right now. So can you guys just in the comments below write down the perfect latitude where grapes are grown? I said that earlier. Just put in the comments if you remember or if you know. The perfect latitude where grapes are grown. Everybody just do it, right? So then we'll
do we
see.
win something?
Okay, there we go.
Do we win something?
Huh? Oh, do you win? I don't know. We win a tour with Jeffrey when this is all over.
So what's the point in me partaking?
All right, so, okay, so I'm seeing the right answer. Mabelnet, did I say your name right? Mabelnet Wine? Okay, what's your actual name? Mabelnet. And he must be in Johannesburg. And then Sheila got the right answer, very good. All right, so 2 so far. No Googling. Andrea, okay, sorry, Andrea, I didn't mean to get your name all wrong. Okay, all right, so 30 to 50 degrees, that's the right latitude, the perfect latitude to grow grapes. Not that they're not grown outside of that, but that's historically where the best wine regions are. Like I said, I'll send you my notes, especially if you signed up for the Google. I'll email you my notes from this whole session. And then we're gonna meet next week. And so not next week, on Thursday actually. So Thursday, we're actually gonna talk to Andrea Melanu from Melanu Wine.
Oh, wow.
Super excited about that. Yeah, so if you guys hop back on Thursday, Andrea will be here and she'll be talking to us about just the winemaking process in general. And she's also my homegirl from California, so I'm super excited about that. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for joining us. Thank you so much to Bo Constantia. I can't wait till this is all over. Maybe you guys can check them out. Make sure you go to their Instagram page, their Facebook page. When you have a chance, please try their wines. They are amazing, especially now that you have some background about what's going on at their wine farm. Yes. And if you're not a member of Blacc, please join Blacc.
Okay. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks so much to everybody. Thank you.
It's been great. Thank you. Thanks, Tuani.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.